asked the other day. He said, "What's the deal with people with all the power and all the money? Like, they continue to look for more." And he was kind of going into like a conspiracy theory kind of mindset, and I could tell where he was going with the question. And I thought about it for a minute, and I shouted out, "Duca!" And he looked at me funny because he didn't know that word. I don't blame him. It was a word I learned when I was in seminary, and it's a word that's used in Buddhist philosophy to mean it means reaching or grasping. And in Buddhist philosophy, it's this idea that we're always reaching or grasping for something. Um, and that when we attain that, then we just simply reach and grasp for the next thing. And that it's this reaching and grasping that is at the core of suffering for humanity. I just didn't have a Christian word for the same thing, but I do think it's a Christian idea. And so I went on to connect this idea to Adam and Eve. And I said, look, if you think about the Adam and Eve story, they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which means that they understood what evil was. And so this was a new thing for them. And the consequence for knowing evil was that Adam would have to work the ground by the sweat of his brow. He couldn't be in the garden anymore, and he would struggle with the ground. And I think what was going on there is at the time, we're looking at a foraging culture. We're in God's garden. When you go foraging and you're outside in the woods, you're in God's garden, and there's food just like on the ground. You can just pick it up and eat it. And there's this shift that happens when they understand evil. Suddenly they shift from just foraging and trusting and believing that God will provide in the same way that God provides for the birds and the flowers. Instead, now they fear for their future, and so they start to farm. This entrance of fear. So with the knowledge of good and evil also comes fear, and with fear comes reaching. So they started to farm because they're reaching for, well, I maybe have enough food for today, but what about tomorrow? And then when they have enough for tomorrow, they worry about the week and the month, and then what about their kids? And I think this applies as we think about the people in the 1% who seem like they have everything and yet they're still reaching for more. We forget that they're struggling with the same things that we are, that it's just the natural progression of allowing fear to move in us and move us towards something. Because when we have enough for today, then we look for tomorrow, and when we have enough, when we have enough of everything, then we start to think about power, because power is another piece. We're able to control those things that we don't know. We're able to control the things that we don't fear by accumulating more. And so then it shifts from looking for money to looking for power, but it's still looking for money. It's just that money is the power. And this process goes on, and it's endless. And that was true in the Buddhist philosophy too, is that this reaching is endless, that there's no end to it. And so I don't think that there's any kind of a conspiracy theory with why those people in power continue to reach for more. I think it's the natural progression of fear. I think it's important that we remember that the opposite of fear is not courage. Courage can't exist without fear, because courage is not the absence of fear, but it's the ability to face your fear. See, the opposite of fear is actually love, and God is love. And it's in the absence of God that we experience the fear, because God casts out all fear. And so the only solution to this continued reaching is to fill that hole that we keep trying to fill with other things, with the presence of God. And that's not easy. And I don't know that any of us can do it in this lifetime perfectly and continuously. There's fleeting moments and glimpses that we can have of it, and that's the best that we can get before we get sucked back in to fear that drives us to things. But as much as you can stay in the presence of God, that's the only solution to fear, is the reconciliation with God that comes through a relationship. I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe to the channel. And make sure you hit the notification bell so that you can find out anytime we have something else coming out. I'm loving sharing bits and pieces of my life as a monastic pastor.